Are you struggling to find great commercial properties to buy? Hi, I'm Jared Kraus.
And I'm Sam Powell, and we're the hosts of Property Pals Australia. And in this episode, we're just going to be discussing about how to find the best commercial property deal in Australia. A lot of people are struggling in this low supply market to actually find these good deals. So the key is to not just be looking for the ones that are on market, but also to be looking at those pre and those off market opportunities in the commercial space. And then in this episode, we're going to be teaching you how to do that one.
Yeah, we talk about like how to build relationships with the right people in the space to find those pre-market and off-market deals, and what goes into building those relationships, and how to build those relationships in a way that can help you for many years to come.
Yeah, it's a good little point there. It's a little secret is it's just being a good communicator throughout that. But we give some really good tips and tricks on how to go about that with real estate agents, and also how to stay top of mind. So there's some really juicy content in here. So hope you get a lot out of it. But obviously, before we do jump into it, look, this is not the only way that we do help people for free. We have a really great free resource on our webpage, which is propertypals.au/resources. And it's really important in this space too for commercial property because it is a large purchase price with those deposits. So making sure you're maximizing your borrowing capacity, and that's what that little mini course is all about, is how to maximize your borrowing capacity to achieve a higher return on investment. So I hope you got a lot out of it, and feel free to leave some comments below, and let's jump in.
Welcome to Property Pals, the podcast where we share everything around how to build a property portfolio, from researching areas, financing, structuring, buying, selling, and reinvesting to live a life of financial independence. As a disclaimer, any information shared by myself, Jared, Sam, and the Property Pals team is strictly general and should not be taken as constituting professional advice. You should consider seeking independent legal, financial, and taxation advice from a qualified professional. Samuel,
Jared,
how we doing?
Doing well, mate. How are you?
I'm good. Pretty tired. Big week. Big week of surfing and fun.
Lifestyle by design.
But I didn't talk too much about property this week. Unfortunately, I wanted to get some information back from a finance broker. Didn't. And that's just me being like, in a rush mode. So that's my own stuff. But we'll talk about this. We'll talk about this in a future podcast episode. What I'm alluding to here in terms of buying another property. But now we're going to be talking about commercial, because we're on the commercial route. And we've talked about valuing commercial property. We've talked about how to save a deposit for commercial property. If you guys haven't checked out those podcasts, check them out. They're the few prior to this one. This one's episode 39. Now we're going to talk about how to find the best commercial property deals. Obviously, we don't want to be buying a lemon. So where should we take this, Sam?
Yeah, commercial, it's a bit of a different beast. They've got commercial websites that you can look into, but there's a lot of commercial deals that goes on pre and off market between obviously agents and those that are looking. So I thought it would be a good, helpful little tip to run through people how to best find and canvass the whole entire Australian commercial property market, because that's going to give them more deal flow, and from there they can obviously use those skills we talked about in how to value them after that. But it's a pretty key part, right, is finding these actual deals that fit what you're trying to achieve. And commercial, there's so many different aspects to it. So it's more so just find those deals, seeing that cash flow, make sure it stacks up, but also being cautious of these pre and off markets as well is probably a good thing to hit on later on. But and I'll allude to that as to why. It's a little bit of a bait thing to keep listening to our voices till the end. But yeah, let's jump into it. I
want to pre-frame something as well. Obviously, you can go and find out commercial. We're going to talk about how to find these deals. But first, obviously, you need to know how, and you should figure this out by listening to our other two podcasts on like how to get your property deposit for a commercial, because it's very different. Also, it's very different in terms of like the size of deposit you need for commercial versus residential, and that's also going to determine a little bit about your buying criteria. Firstly, about the size of the asset that you can purchase in terms of how much it costs, and then also that should determine what type of property, commercial property, you want to purchase as well, with the borrowing capacity that you can get, or the money that you can spend, I should say. So you need to have those two things pretty nailed down. So the size of the asset and the type of the commercial property as well, right, Sam?
Yeah, and well, a lot of that comes around understanding what your purchasing capacity is too, right? So
Yep.
obviously we've talked about that. So they're always the key things. Is you don't want to be wasting your time looking for properties if you don't know exactly what your budget is. So yeah, talking to your broker, understanding what deposit you've got, and then you can go shopping, right? And this is that next phase of, all right, we know now what my purchasing capacity is, what I'm looking for in regards to commercial property. Is it industrial? Is it retail? Is it office? Or is it a bit of a mixed use? Getting a bit more laser focused into what you're wanting to purchase, because then it's kind of like you walk into Maya. If you don't have anything in your head as to what you want to buy, you probably end up walking out with a whole bunch of stuff that you didn't actually need. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's a really good explanation. So go in with a shopping list and come out with something that's going to give you what you are after in terms of results with your property portfolio. So once you have that criteria, where do we go? Where do we find these properties, Sam? Give us the good stuff.
Yeah. Well, step one was always pinpoint what you're looking to, where you want to buy and what you want to buy. So let's talk about that. Once you got that, ensure that it exists, right? So go on to commercialrealestate.com.au or realcommercial.com.au. They're Australia's biggest commercial listing portals for real estate agents, commercial real estate agents. So they're a really great place to start. Jump into the sold section there and see what's actually been selling in that target area for that sort of budget. Because what you're doing is educating yourself for what are these things actually selling for, on what yields, and how often they're actually becoming available. So the reason why I want to know how long they're actually becoming available, because you look at it and go, well, this asset is, I'd buy that one, and then you keep scrolling through, oh, there's another one I would have bought, but that might have been 3 to 6 months in between when they were actually sold. So then you start to realize, oh, well, this asset only comes around once every 3 or 6 months. So you're understanding the time that it might take you, and also you're going to be understanding, well, when that asset does come up to purchase, you need to act with speed, and you need to know what this thing's worth, and then you need to negotiate as hard as possible to ensure you're securing it. So that's the key part that I'd like to sort of touch in on. But yeah, I mean, how to find these things. Let's get into the juicy part of it.
So are you saying that some people may be looking for a deal that doesn't exist, and that could be it could be a huge damper on the growth of their portfolio by it causing them to sit on the sidelines for longer than expected?
Yeah, I see that a lot, right? Like everyone's wanting something. They have a vision of what they want to purchase, but there's no perfect property in the established world, both commercial and residential. So they're going around and just waiting for something to come up. And if you're buying into a market that's growing, your purchase capacity is getting eroded through that waiting process. So it's kind of like an education process for people to realize, well, there's no point in shopping in a location. Like you might want to buy on the Sunshine Coast, an industrial asset for $1.2 million. If you can't find anything that's sold recently for around that $1.2 million mark or below, in that location, you're just going to be sitting there monitoring a market, wasting your time, and you'll be there 12 months, 24 months later, and you haven't actually acquired an asset. So it's just a waste of your time.
Yeah, and a huge opportunity cost. Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
yeah. That's always the key part of having these conversations with the strategy up front with people, just to educate them on this is the market you're buying in. Does it exist? Tick. And does it exist within your budget? Tick. Okay, cool. Well, let's go in and find the best deals and what's available both pre and off market.
Yeah, perfect. I'm gonna link. We'll link to those two links in the show notes as well. commercialrealestate.com.au and realcommercial.com.au. So you guys can see if your dream can become a reality. Your dream property for your first acquisition or commercial or third or fourth or whatever acquisition is a reality, and you can meet the market.
Yeah. Well, that jumps into the next step of it, which is actually using those websites and going in and seeing what's being sold on market. It doesn't have to be within your price range for this step, which is what you want to do is go and find these commercial real estate agents, because you think about it, it's their job to go and find listings, right? Like, so they're out there canvassing the market, trying to find people to sell, and they're doing it. They've been doing it for years. So the chances of them finding an asset before you is quite high. But there's a lot of people that do transact, especially in the commercial space, off market, just because it's a business transaction. They might, have certain reasons to why to sell it off market, which could be they need that quick cash, or they don't want the neighbours knowing that they're selling, or the tenant prefers to have that privacy and not have people walking through that asset. So that's kind of like, it is off market essentially. But if you're calling these real estate agents, they might have like, you give this like as a seller, you might be like, look, I don't want to list it on the portals, but if you do find a buyer within this range, let's have this conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So basically, if I'm going to buy a commercial property, I'll call up a bunch of agents and give them my buying criteria. So, what I'm looking for, the type of asset I'm looking for, and how much I have to spend, and then asking, if you have anything now, let me know, or if you've got something coming up, let me know, because I'm in the market to purchase and I'm cashed up, trained up, ready to go.
Yeah, so that's step one, right? Like of that process, and it's a lot of people. They'll call a few agents, and a few's not enough, right? Like you want to be collecting around 30 commercial real estate agents as a minimum within that target suburb. If there's obviously a limited number of commercial agents for that suburb, depending where you're buying, then and look into the next suburbs, surrounding suburbs, because you want to be canvassing at least 2 suburbs to target for that commercial asset. And you just want to get all their names, their phone numbers, and their email address, and ask them, like, can I email you? Can I text you once a week? Like, this is what I really want to do, and I'm right in the buy zone. So when the right asset comes up, I'm ready to transact, and that's giving the agent a lot of confidence in, you as a buyer. And if you're worried about your budget too, having those conversations with the agents, telling them what you're actually looking for and what your budget is, they'll tell you straight up, it's a pipe dream, or
because they know the market, right? They know the market because they're in the market, and you're just starting to come to the market. So there's so much advice you can get to from real estate agents, and sometimes, obviously, you take these things with a grain of salt as well, because they are selling you property. I did notice that you said, Sam, like something that I did maybe 3 or 4 years ago when I was looking at buying a property, is I got a list of agents, and I didn't just contact them once. My intention is to build relationships with them, because the more the better the relationship you have with somebody, the more trust there is. And that's what you want to build, is you want to build a trusting relationship with an agent. So they trust you, that when they do find the right deal, they trust that you're going to be the right buyer for it. And then you're also top of mind because you're messaging them once a week or twice a week on the platform, like you said, Sam, how they prefer. Like, do you want me to text you, or do you want me to email you, or just want like a quick 3-minute yarn, just an update on the market, see where you're at, see if you got anything. And you do it in a way that suits the agent. And then you can have a spreadsheet of like all of these different agents and their phone numbers and last time you contacted them, what you talked about, all those sorts of things. And that's like a structured way to build relationships. That is a really good way to do it. But what I've noticed you said, Sam, is like you want to have two suburbs. Now, do you mean when you mean two suburbs, do you mean two locations and they don't need to be side by side in terms of like where in the country, and why two?
Well, I say two as a minimum, but you don't want too many. Like commercials are like a bit different to residential. There's a lot more opportunities in the residential market than there is commercial. So what I'm trying to get you to understand is building relationships with these agents. If you've got too many suburbs, and like it depends on where that industrial or that office or that retail or that precinct for the commercial actually lies. Like say on the Gold Coast, there's Ashmore's a classic industrial location, and then it might be to go. You have to go maybe 20 minutes north to go to Stapleton, and that's another industrial precinct. So there could be two key areas to focus in on. If there's obviously commercial properties within surrounding suburbs, then obviously you build that rapport there. But staying top of mind with too many agents is very difficult, and that's where people kind of get a little bit like they're not really laser focused into that market. So one, they're not getting as well educated if they're too scattergun, and two, they just won't do the efficient job to find those pre and those off market opportunities coming through. So I try to really niche into just a handful of suburbs, 2 to 5 would be my preference, and then just call those agents, as I said, get their email and ask them the permission, because you've got to think about it from a real estate agent's perspective, right? Like they make hundreds of phone calls a day. They also receive a lot of phone calls a day of buyers. Oh, I'm looking for this. Is this something that is possible, or do you have it? They'll say no, and then they'll never hear from that potential buyer again. So what I'm trying to help people with is just stay front of mind, keep doing it every single week. So when that agent leaves a potential listing presentation of a property, they're in their head, they're like, oh, that Jared guy keeps messaging me. He's a perfect buyer for this. I've got this email or a text message once a week from him. He's a nice guy. He's ready to go. I'm going to give him a call. Does that kind of make sense for the psyche of the agent?
Yeah, absolutely. So people, I'm just thinking about like everybody listening, like, yeah, great. Okay, cool. Find 2 suburbs, get some agents, chat to them, stay top of mind, build a relationship, and just showcase that you're an attractive buyer, because that's what they want. And with those 2 suburbs, how do we know what suburbs to choose and why?
Before we continue today's pod, I want to ask you a few questions. What is your property investment goal? What type of properties do you want to own? How many? What size valuation property portfolio do you want to own? And how much net income do you want to be earning? Essentially, what's your magic number in passive income that you want to be earning? And do you know how to get there? And if you do you know how to get there in the least time possible with the least amount of risk?
Sam and I have been helping people invest in property and build property portfolios for years. People who are now replacing their income through property, and we want to help you do the same. Right now, for a limited time, we are offering free property coaching to our listeners. We won't be able to do this forever, of course, so head to propertypowers.au/coaching. That's propertypowers.au/coaching to see how we can help you achieve your investment property goals. Link will be in the description too.
Well, that's the secret source of a commercial buyer's agent.
Exactly.
Yeah, like, there's a lot of location research and data that goes into it. It's, I mean, where you feel confident on in that space. If you want to go it alone, then I'd say stick to your major CBD, like the fringes on that. You'll be chasing your budget, and your yield will give you a limited bunch of locations on that front.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, I'd try to stay to those more established areas because there's more businesses. And then from an investment perspective too, going down that commercial route is, you know, for me personally, I wouldn't. I'm not a proponent of buying something with a great yield out in the boonies, which is four
yeah.
hours west of any major CBD. It's kind of like, well, yes, the yield's great. It's within your budget. However, what happens if that tenant vacates? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're looking at also the vacancy rates as well, I guess, in commercial, and the vacancy rates in those like smaller towns that are further out from the CBDs are probably going to be higher than, say, in a CBD, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And then it's the asset type too. So the bigger the asset, the harder it is going to be to find a tenant for that.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, that's obviously why we're proponents of commercial buyers agents as well. There's a lot of value in finding those locations, and then obviously finding the assets. So the fee that they charge is, in my opinion, well worth the reward. Not to say that you shouldn't get educated and learn yourself how the process works, but it's
absolutely.
just look, you'll be on the market a lot longer. You'll have less stronger relationships with these agents, and you lack the negotiation and analysis skill set to really have a good purchase price at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, I was speaking to some friends yesterday who I was initially the first ever. I'm not sure if you remember, Sam. I did a course, property course, with a guy that was just teaching a strategy that wasn't very good. I spent a lot of money on it. It was just it's 4 years ago, and there was a bunch of us, and I'm not going to be naming names and whatnot, but there was a bunch of us that did it. And I caught up. They proposed to catch up because they were looking at doing like a buy and flip strategy, and they did it, and I backed out of it, and I went and off invested in my own thing. And I was chatting to them yesterday, and they're looking to get back into the market, and they're trying to find locations. Uh, and what they struggled with was them holding themselves accountable to doing the work to find the property, because there's a
Mm.
lot of work that goes into it. And I said to him, why do you need to hold yourself accountable? Can't you outsource that job to somebody else, like a residential buyer's agent? And it's the same with commercial, right? Like there's a lot of work that goes into finding like those two good locations, and then finding the asset in that location, and then what you said with the negotiations. So if people are looking for a buyer's agent, commercial buyer's agent, we know a bunch, and reach out to us and ask us, well, let us know a little bit about your buying criteria. If you don't know it, we can help you with that. And then based on where you're at in your buying criteria and strategy, then we can help pair you up with the right buyer's agent for you guys too. And if you want to do it yourself, you can do it yourself. Like you can go through and talk about what we've talked about here in the pod of like, check out those sites, speak to a bunch of agents, do the groundwork.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like the time it takes is quite extensive, and from a buyer's agent's perspective, everyone's got sort of an idea of what they want, and there's a education process for every new buyer that's coming in.
Mm.
And there's a lot of time and effort that goes into that. But then, once you've got that brief, it is time consuming because to call 30 or 60 real estate agents, and then it takes obviously a few days to go through that whole entire list. And then once you've got that a hard part set up, you're texting, you're setting up automated emails every 2 weeks. That's a really good one, using the BCC email trick that we talk about in Hello House. Is you just put them all in the BCC. Your start of your email is basically, hey. Like you obviously don't want to say their name because it's being sent out to about 60 people. Just touching base, as we spoke about on the phone. This is what I'm looking for, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Keep it simple, and then obviously just say, please give me a call if anything like this pops up. And thanks for understanding that I'm just really keen to get this asset type. And I'll be sending through the same email every single fortnight or a week, depends on what you want to do, just to stay top of mind. So I'll have those conversations on the phone. Like, don't feel like you have to respond to the email or the text if there's nothing there. I just want to constantly remind you that I'm in the market and I'm ready to buy, and I'm really keen to obviously find something like this. I know it exists. You have that conversation with them as well as a sales agent. They're just humans. They'll tell you pretty much to your face that doesn't exist. And this is the thing: if it doesn't exist, like, it may exist for me as a buyer, but as the agent, they're not looking for a hard person to deal with. So you got to think about it. If there's a whole bunch of people looking for a similar asset, and you're the one that's constantly sort of like, oh, I'm looking for a bargain. I'm looking for a bargain. It's like, well, I'm selling the property. I'm not going to sell it to you for a bargain. That's not my job.
Exactly.
So kind of similar to what you shared previously is you always want to be looking for a good asset at a fair price than a fair asset at a good price. So
yeah,
I like
absolutely. Thanks to Warren Buffett for that quote.
I was quoting Jared Krause.
I'd love to claim it as my own, but that's not very good to do, is it?
No, but yeah, you bang on. So that's kind of like, that's the process you go through. It's not rocket science. It's just extremely time consuming, and that's why the fees that the buyer's agents charge are warranted. Because it's not only to find those assets, as I say, like, there's a massive skill set in analyzing them to the right value. And then the other on top of that is negotiating as hard as possible on your behalf. So, like, when you're looking at what money you're spending on these assets, which is generally 500,000 to 5 million for most sort of people, then that fee of some commercial buyers agents charge around 2% of the purchase price. It's quite on the way in. It looks like a decent whack of money, but I assure you the value you get out of it, out of a good commercial buyers agent, is worth their weight in gold.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to look at it as well as, like, it's a business transaction. So yes, it's a tax write-off, but also, what is the ROI that you can get from that investment in them doing the work? And more often than not, that a buyer's agent will be able to negotiate down a property to like the same price, or sometimes lesser, and that's happened to me, is lesser than the cost of you using them as a buyer's agent. So if you look at it that way, it's kind of like it's a free service if you think about it that way.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Actually, you can write it off on tax if you're doing an investment play, or even if you, as a business, if you're looking for a premises. That's why I love commercial. Is if you're looking for a premise to move into, your business is paying that fee. So it's think of it that the cost is even greatly more reduced, and also it adds to the if you pay $1 million for the purchase, and it costs you $20,000 to pay a professional to do all that process for you. Your actual purchase price from the capital gains perspective is $1,020,000, right? So any profit you make on the top end, you can write off whenever you choose to sell it. Which is a good point. I did want to hit on, like, there's a really key part of this whole finding process that people do struggle with, and that's actually having an open dialogue with these agents that you've done all the hard work, right? You've built this rapport. They're keen. It's available. They want to get your property because they want to be able to sell it nice and easily at the right price. But where people do lack is actually in the communication with the agents. So find a lot that the agents, they'll go out, they'll send you an opportunity. If you're not responding to that, even if it's not the asset that you want, someone's gone to the effort to think about you, to put that in front of you. If you don't respond, then I don't care how many emails you're going to be sending you and text messages, they don't respect you as a buyer after that, because they've gone to the effort to work with you, and you're not working with them. Does that kind
Yeah.
of make sense as well?
Yeah, it's a two-way street, and you can't just be hounding them with emails, and every time they send you something back, you don't reply, and you're expecting a reply from them when they do have something, and when they do send you something, you just like, nah. Like, even if it's not for you, that's think about it like any relationship. It's the give
Yeah.
and take, and you just can't be just taking, and not being appreciative, even if it's not the right deal for you.
Yeah, and you look at it as well as the the feedback is important to them too. So there's no point in
Yeah.
doing like they might be thinking, oh, they're looking for this type of asset. They send it to you. You're like, that's the education process that you're working through together. So that
Hmm.
way, they're not going to waste your time with something similar in the future because you've rejected something that you have given them clear feedback on. I mean, they might present something to you. Obviously, agents are running around. They'll present everything just to try and get a sale. But at the same time, it's just it's a healthy, open dialogue relationship with a professional who does it every day. And what you're doing is actually leveraging their time to go and find the asset for you. So treat it with a bit of respect is all I'm trying to say to people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're kind of like training them to like find you the right deal that you're looking for through that feedback that you're giving them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then once you do find something, right? Like this is sort of the key is that in that pre and the off market stage is you've got to move with speed. Once they put it forward, you want to be able to get the contract reviewed, analyze the property, know what it's worth, get all the documents in place. And that's where obviously a good commercial buyer's agent will have a list of things they want to collect, like the lease documents and all the transaction histories, your insurance, everything to make sure that it's in place. So you can pull that trigger really quickly. And that's what's going to help you with um, securing these things below market value as well. Is obviously the agent has somewhat of an idea of what it's worth. You're also competing with the seller. So the seller, no doubt, everyone's got three different prices. They're low, they're happy to take, and they're preferred sale price. So that's where the art of negotiation comes in too. But the key on that point is just working with speed and making sure that if it isn't pre and off market, that you've been given this opportunity, and their alternative is to take it to the market or to a whole bunch of other people to shop it around. What they're doing is researching that asset, taking time, doing their due diligence. A lot of buyers do take too long to make that educated decision, and people that do it every day, that's how they actually can transact with so much more speed, is because they know what they're doing. They do it every day. That's a key point that I'd
Yeah.
hit home on as well.
Yeah, it's really, I guess we can wrap this whole thing up by saying it's really about relationship building, and that's what property is, and business and life is, and the quality of the relationships you have with these people in the space can give you the more quality assets.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, I mean, the last thing I'd say on that front is don't forget the very last point. You've got the asset. You're unconditional. Like once you hit unconditional phase, it's pretty sure it'll settle. I'd say make sure you're turning off those BCC emails so you're not pestering them with a whole bunch of emails and them calling you for something that you no longer need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, guys, obviously, if you are looking for a buyer's agent, reach out to us. We're happy to help you pair you up with the right buyer's agent. And yeah, thanks for listening.
Yeah. If you have any questions, reach out. There's as we do here, there's a lot that you don't know in the space, but it's just talking to the right people. So it starts that conversation. And we've got our coaching page on powell.au on the website. Go check that out, and you'll understand a little bit more about how we all work here. And by all means, shoot us an email, hello@powell.au, and more than happy to introduce you.